The path to Wired is sort of long and complicated, but basically I started as a very poor student and failed out of high school, failed out of college, and since I failed so much for so long, I felt it was important that I prove to people that I could do things. So I took the hardest programs I could think of, and so I studied physics, and then was recruited to work for The Economist as a science editor in 1993. But before I had, the internet was starting off in the science world. Remember, the internet began in science as a way to connect scientific laboratories. The web was created at CERN in Switzerland. And so I was using it every day, and this weird magazine called Wired came out in 1993 in May. And so I went to The Economist and I said, instead of covering science, I'd like to cover the internet. And they like, you hear what? And I said, the internet, it's going to be big. I read about it in Wired. And I stayed with The Economist until 2001, when Condé Nast, who had bought Wired by then, recruited me to take it over. And they said, you know, I loved The Economist, but I didn't want to leave, but Wired changed my life. So I said yes, and here I am. So I've written 3 books, 2 of which are already published, and one's coming out soon. The first book was The Long Tail, which was my first book about sort of the economics of how technology changes culture. The long tail being sort of, you know, all that cultural diversity that has no place in a blockbuster, you know, media market like the 20th century, television, radio, Hollywood. All that culture, all that sort of niche culture, global culture that was suppressed by the Hollywood model and the internet, destroyed the blockbuster monopoly, allowing diversity, which is the web we know today. So that's The Long Tail. Free was my next book about the business models built around price and zero. And my 3rd book, which will be coming out in October, is called Makers, the New Industrial Revolution, about the applying the web's innovation model to manufacturing. So about 5 years ago, I was trying to get my children interested in science and technology, and so I started bringing home projects for them to do, Lego Mindstorms, robotics, and things like that. And they weren't terribly interested, but I became more and more intrigued by what was possible. And so I created a community to talk about how the new available, you know, sensors and electronics and GPS and cameras and wireless and all that that's available in phones could be used to create drones, from phones to drones. And I knew nothing about the subject, but it was clear that this was one of those moments when the technology finally became available and people could do interesting things with it. So I thought, why don't I lead that? And ended up creating something called DIY Drones, which is a website, and then a robotics company called 3D Robotics that makes the technology created by this community and sells it as an autopilot. And today we sell more drones than, we have more drones in our community than the US military has in the entire military. So we thought we would introduce the concept of a personal drone as well. In the course of doing so, I accidentally became part of what's called the maker movement, which is basically people who are using digital technologies to democratize manufacturing. Imagine if you could push a button and a camera could position itself right behind you as you're doing your sports and just follow you, filming you as you did your kiteboarding or windsurfing and things like that. You know, personal droid, we've seen Star Wars, right? We know the concept of a personal droid. You know, little robots that follow you around. We can do that today. Out there on the bay this summer, you'll see people with personal droids filming their kiteboarding. You know, you push a button in your pockets, and they come from the beach, position themselves over you, follow you around, and then they go back home with the battery as well. That's just one example. Who knows? I don't know. You know, when in 1977, we didn't know what the personal computer was for either. No, I did not succeed. However, I haven't given up yet. So here's what we do. So we have this 3D printer, and so on weekends, I make them do projects with me, and if the projects are fun enough, they actually don't mind. And so what we're doing here, and so let me see if I can give you some examples. With my girls in particular, they have doll houses, and so what they have video game time, and they're allowed to play The Sims, which is like a virtual dollhouse. But then the video game time is over, and so what we do is I say, okay, so you're gonna have to play with your real dollhouse. And they're like, oh, but we made such cool furniture. In The Sims, how do we make cool furniture with in the real world? And I said, well, we have a 3D printer. Let's use it. So we have a 3D printer like this here, and what we do is so let's see if I can find the download a design like that, and then we print that. And my children, every weekend they download designs, print them out, paint them, and they're makers. So my 5 children have all gone through the French system, French curriculum, and we're growing up speaking only French in school. We chose that because we believe in bilingualism, and the French government does a very good job of subsidizing and encouraging excellent schools that teach bilingualism, first French and then Spanish. Along with the language part of the curriculum is also an emphasis on science and technology and computers, and bringing technology into the classroom, which is exciting. But one of the things I would hope that the schools do is find a way to bridge the divide between computer class and art class. And when you think about it, design, especially digital design, is the intersection of those two. It involves artistic skills to create, but it's done on computers. And at the end of the day, you produce a physical object. Some of the biggest CAD software companies are French. There's Dassault, I think, as one. Obviously, many talented engineers. Many of our drones team are French. They're there. You may not see them. They may not have tech shops, but they're working in their garages, working in the basement, ready to come out.